Hello and welcome to the Everything is Black and White podcast. It is the Monday show on a Wednesday. Newcastle United through to the quarterfinals of the FA Cup, having beaten Blackburn Rovers 4-3 on penalties, 1-1 after extra time. I'm Andrew Musgrove, joined by Aaron Stokes. And ladies and gents, if you ever doubted Aaron's commitment to this podcast, it is his day off after finishing work at 1 p.m. last night in the morning, 1 a.m. rather. He's come onto the podcast to talk Newcastle United's progression into the FA Cup quarter-final. Aaron, late night for you. You well?
Yeah, late night, and thank you very much for the comment there. But I can guarantee I would not be sat here if they'd lost. I am completely.
Oh well, he did make that clear, ladies and gents, as well in our discussion. I mean, if you want to know about transfer discussions, it was all about me trying to negotiate with Aaron on Sunday and Monday. Would you come on the podcast today? And he said, only if Newcastle United win. Goodness me, that's the commitment to it.
So that was the most important thing last night, getting the win so that we could do an extra episode today. But yeah, late night, a nervy night, a tense night, a downright horrible night, but they got the job done.
Well, that's it. And I have to be honest, I was hoping this morning after a decent night's sleep, which I didn't get because my little one's picked up a sickness bug. So I haven't had any sleep really. But I did hope that I'd wake up and feel a little bit better about Newcastle's performance. A great result, but a dire performance. And in many ways, Aaron, some people may think, if they didn't know the result, we'd be talking about a defeat because there were a lot of negatives in the performance. We'll start with the positive stuff because that's what we're going to try and do. Yeah. Progression into the quarterfinal of the FA Cup for the first time since 2007. I think that's about the 10th time I've said it in the space of 2 minutes. Brilliant. Let's keep saying it because I'm all here for it. You had clever game management and taking Isak off on 60 minutes to protect him for Saturday. Trippier not playing extra time to save his legs. Joe Willock getting through unscathed. Elliot Anderson back, okay, didn't have a touch, but he scored his penalty. So there were, a few positive. Anthony Gordon looking electric as per Martin Dúbravka's brilliant performance. So they're the positives. Quite a few negatives, but we'll stick with the positives for now. Come on. Let's start with, say, Martin Dúbravka's performance. Great to see him, doing what he's paid for, yes, but some great saves, important saves, the hero of the night. He's had a tough few months. Turns out he's been ill. So that's maybe a reason why he's been below par. Conceded the most goals in the Premier League since replacing Nick Pope in goal. Last night, though, showed you exactly why Newcastle United wanted to keep him as Pope's backup. Brilliant performance by him.
Well, I thought I was going to come on the pod today and be the positive one to your negative, but you've just reeled off pretty much all my 10 positives there in the space of 30 seconds. Look, I think the main positive is that they're through to the next round. Yes, it wasn't pretty, but that is the nature of these cup ties sometimes, especially going away to a place like Ewood Park. And ultimately, that's the most important thing. On Dúbravka, I thought he was absolutely fantastic from minute one. I thought he was the hero in normal time, the hero in extra time, and the hero in the shootout. It was just one of those nights where, he just looked unbeatable pretty much, apart from that unfortunate defensive mistake for the goal. I saw a couple of tweets about Dúbravka this morning saying that he's finally had his redemption arc after that Manchester United move. I mean, it's been a long time in the making. But yeah, he was absolutely fantastic. And I think it begs the question as to whether we should talk about who you wanted in between the sticks last night, because I'm not sure whether you said it on a podcast or just said it to me off air, but you were all for Loris Karius keeping his position, weren't you?
What are you doing, digging us out like that, man? There's some context to that. I said if Martin Dúbravka wasn't 100% fit, you'd play Karius because he didn't do too bad of a job against Arsenal. Look, Martin Dúbravka was well enough. Whether he was 100%, you'll never know, but he was well enough to play against Blackburn, and he did a remarkable job. Some really important saves, and none less than the two penalties that he saved. And yeah, great boost for his confidence because it has been a tough time for him replacing Nick Pope. I mean, replacing Nick Pope is one thing. Mm-hmm. And look, Nick Pope can do things that Martin Dúbravka can't, namely he's confident coming off his line to a certain extent, but he seems to organise the defence better. But, from a shot-stopping perspective, Dúbravka was fantastic. And it's really important that he's had that performance, I think, to just to pick him up because it has, as I say, been a tough time for him.
And it sounds, from what was coming out last night, that Dúbravka really isn't 100% still. And was pretty much touch and go for last night's game. Obviously got the nod and it proved to work wonders. really, really important for him because, as you say, conceded a lot of goals since coming back in the team. He has also put in some fantastic performances, namely at Liverpool and games like that, but they were always tinged because they were conceding so many goals despite his performances. So really, really pleased for him on a personal level as well. And also a little shout out to Ainsley Pears in the other goal because the Blackburn keeper was equally as fantastic at the other end. Made some really, really crucial saves later on. I thought that both keepers did absolutely fantastic last night.
And Geordie Toon for Life says, redemption for Miggy. There's another positive because he's another man who's been getting a bit of stick, didn't start yesterday, but comes off the bench and probably was the man who changed the game. A wonderful assist for Anthony Gordon. And Blackburn had done so well up to that point, up to the introduction of Almiron. It seemed to be his running that really found a weakness within Blackburn for probably the first time in the game.
Yeah, I think he was definitely the best player on the pitch for the last half an hour, 40 minutes or so of the game when he came on. And it was a weird performance for Miggy last night. And I say that because he was playing with the confidence of a player who has been scoring goals for fun, and obviously that hasn't been the case. But I thought he just looked very, very calm and composed on the ball. He was picking it up. He was trying to make things happen. As you say, T. Gordon could have grabbed himself another 1 or 2 assists. So really, really positive for him to come on because if I'm completely honest, when Howe made the triple change on the hour mark, I was scratching my head a little bit because I understand obviously Isaac and Willock have got to be managed with their game time, but I thought Newcastle were starting to turn a corner in the game. And a little bit like Arsenal the other day where Newcastle were finally starting to find their rhythm and then he changed it. But I actually thought Miggy did really well. Obviously, Willock gets protected. I thought Harvey Barnes probably had a night that he'll want to forget pretty quickly. But on the whole, I thought that the game management, which I'm sure we'll go on to, was actually pretty good from Howe.
Yeah, it was because he's been criticised this season for the lack of game management. So it was quite refreshing, haven't said that word in a while. It was quite refreshing to see him make those changes to protect Willock, to protect Isaac, to protect Trippier, because he knows Saturday's game against Wolves is going to be really, really tough. You know, they're in good form at the moment. They're pointing a place above Newcastle United, and he knows that those 3 players are going to be key to getting all 3 points on Saturday. But not only that, to protect them longer term, because you don't want Isaac pulling up and then missing 3 or 4 games. You don't want Joe Willock doing the same, etc., etc. So yeah, great game management from Howe in that instance. And then the substitution as well to bring Elliot Anderson on for Lewis Miley was quite an interesting one. Clearly, they felt Elliot Anderson was better placed to put the ball in the back of the net, and it worked.
Yeah, it did. I think it was quite telling that we didn't see Elliot Anderson earlier in the game. Obviously, there was a lot of people calling for him during the game. But it's clear that, having had such a long time out, hasn't played since mid-October, he's back. They clearly thought that he was the man to take the penalty, and he did an absolutely fantastic job with it. I think the only sort of point of contention around that move was the fact that it was Miley who came off, having already come on, and Sean Longstaff, who looked dead on his feet for pretty much 110 of the 120 minutes, was still kept on the pitch. But look, it worked wonders. I actually thought Miley played quite well when he came on. I thought he was measured and calm at a moment when the game needed that. But look, it's fantastic to see Anderson back. I can't wait to see more of him. And I think it's just another option for that midfield. I mean, look at where we were a couple of weeks ago when it was constantly that 3. You've now got real options in there with Willock and Anderson back.
You certainly have. And Anthony Gordon as well, looking like the danger man for Newcastle United as per. And I'll let you guys into a little secret, not really a secret, but behind the curtain kind of thing. So I was watching last night on the iPlayer, and it turned out my stream was 2-3 minutes behind whatever stream Aaron was watching. I trust you pay your TV license, Aaron. And I text Aaron straight after Anthony Gordon had missed that golden chance where he just puts it in at the keeper's mid-drift, really just needs to lift it over him, and it's a goal. He had a similar one the last time out at St James's Park. And in big caps, I text in, Anthony Gordon can play as the 3rd striker, no worries. And then literally as I sent that text, in real time, Anthony Gordon scored. So that is me shut up well and truly. The point I'm making is he's carrying Newcastle, isn't he? Because he's the only one that really looks a threat. Because as we'll get on to, Newcastle have got through, but it wasn't pretty. And other than him and Dúbravka, it's quite you'd be pushed to really say anyone else came out there with some credit. But Anthony Gordon, the third striker that you're seeing.
Yeah, 28 minutes past 9 last night. Big capital letters. Gordon can be the stand-in striker. My arse.
Don't say that. It's a family podcast.
21:30. Haha, my stream is 2 minutes behind. Now, I actually saw that message flash up on my screen and thought you were talking about the goal, and I thought you were agreeing with me. So yeah, that was a little amusing one last night. Look,
shows you what I know.
Gordon was absolutely fantastic last night. From the start, what he can do out wide and what he can do through the middle offers them just such variance at a time when they really need it. And I think you bang on. I think he carried the outfield players last night, while Dúbravka obviously kept it safe at the back. And look, let's not disguise the fact it was a really, really poor performance on the whole. Newcastle suddenly look like they just can't break teams down when they're sat behind the ball, compact and really tight, which Blackburn, to their credit, were from minute 1 to minute 120. But Gordon can just offer something so much different on the ball, off the ball, taking players on out wide, obviously carrying it through the middle. He should have done better with that chance last night. I actually think he probably should have squared it a Miggy, and I think if he had his time again, he would. But look, let's not talk about that, because 30 seconds later, he does what I knew he could do, and let's put the ball in the net as a central striker. Good finish. He could have had 2 or 3 last night, but he was the standout for me in terms of the outfield players.
Indeed, and let's talk about the penalty shootout, because Newcastle United very rarely win penalty shootouts, but most of them were calm and composed. You mentioned Harvey Barnes missing, but Bruno putting the ball in the back of the net, Gordon, really important, obviously, that Newcastle win that penalty shootout to go through the next round. But that'll do them the world of good. Just the fact they've won a penalty shootout, so the next time they have to do one, they can actually say, you know what, we can win shootouts.
Well, you know what, barring Chelsea, they are actually winning the last few shootouts under Howe. They obviously had a couple last season in the run to the Carabao Cup final. The absolute stones on Bruno to do a penalty like that. Fabian Schär as well, calmly rolling it beyond the goalkeeper. And Elliot Anderson, as I said, I thought the penalty was fantastic as well. So you sort of go into, I think me pessimistically goes into these penalty shootouts thinking, well, they've got no chance. And look, how nervous I was on Derby Day. You were there with me on the morning. You saw the pain etched over my face. I think I was actually more nervous last night going into extra time and penalties than I was for the Derby. I had a real fear of trepidation that they were going to go out in such a disappointing way. And to be fair to the lads, they did absolutely fantastic in the shootout, Barnes aside. And now, look, it's just they need to get the performances back on track. Last night's result masked a really, really poor performance. Wolves, I know, is filling you with dread on Saturday, and the fixtures don't really get much easier from there. So let's hope this is the stepping stone. But how many times have we said that this season? We said it after Fulham on the 16th of December. They obviously go and lose to Chelsea and Luton and Forest over the Christmas period. We sort of said it after the Derby, and yes, okay, they put that unbeaten run together, but it wasn't that big launch pad that we thought it was going to be. This time, with players coming back, hopefully it will be.
Now, how big of a win was this for Eddie Howe? Because we said prior to the game he really needs it, because kind of the season hinges on it. But given how bad the performance was, does that dilute the victory and the progression at the next round slightly? Because we're sitting here, and while we're celebrating going to the quarterfinals, we're also about to pick apart this performance, and it's quite easy to do because it was dire. So it doesn't kind of make everything go away, does it? And you kind of summed it up. Actually, it kind of masks the issues that we know are there.
Yeah, I actually wrote about this. In the very, very early hours of this morning, so I'm trying to remember what I actually said. It was about 2:00, but I actually wrote, based off some of the things I've seen in reaction to the getting through, about sort of where it leaves Howe. Now, Howe's overriding emotion, he said last night, was relief. I think that was the overwhelming reaction for all of us. But it was quite telling that I saw quite a few people, even though they got through, given the manner of the performance, were actually starting to say, look, is it time that we move on from Eddie Howe? And I think the negativity that surrounds the performance in some people's minds will outweigh the result, because it was Blackburn away, 16th in the Championship, in really bad form. We had a very, very strong team out. We couldn't break them down. And I think if they'd lost last night, I think we really would have seen the tide turn for the first time in Howe's Premiership. I think we would have actually seen a real pressure placed on his head, because the season wouldn't be over, because they're still in touching distance in the league, but the success of this season rests on getting very, very far in the FA Cup. I mean, they've got to go through to at least the semis, and I think even then they'll be wanting a final again. And I saw one publication last night, and I won't name them, but they said Dúbravka spares Howe the sack, and I thought, okay, well, maybe jumping the gun a bit here, but I think, yes, that's probably inaccurate, but I think it spared him maybe some outside noise, maybe some outside criticism, but I don't think the pressure's fully off him yet.
And because, well, it isn't because of the performance, and it was so off the pace. But I think the more worrying thing is, it's what we've kind of come to expect from Newcastle. This is kind of been Newcastle of late. The Arsenal performance wasn't great, but people put that down to Arsenal being an elite side, probably going to win the Premier League. But this is Blackburn, as you mentioned, 4 points off the drop zone, struggling, usually conceding a boatload of goals, although John Eustace has shored it up. But they looked like the team that wanted it more. Newcastle were second to most of the balls. They were at times looking like they were running through cement. But it's not the first time we're seeing this. So what has to change? What can Eddie Howe do? Because usually the answer is, well, you've got to give him time to get everyone back, but he's now got the options. So is it now just a case of bedding in and hoping that the return of Elliot Anderson, the return of Joe Willock, that will change everything for Eddie Howe and Newcastle United going forward?
Look, I think first and foremost, I mean, the results need to continue in terms of, they're not losing too many games, but the performances need to be better. Draws against Bournemouth and Luton were not good. The Arsenal performance, we obviously don't need to go over. Last night was really, really concerning. When Newcastle had the ball, not when they were out of possession. We've talked loads about them conceding goals, but actually last night we saw them really, really devoid of ideas for breaking down a second-tier team. So look, I think the performance needed to be better, and I think we need to start seeing the Newcastle of old under Howe, where they were playing this free-flowing football, and that will come if they keep these big players fit. Touch wood. Isak and Willock, if they can stay the course, then Newcastle will get better. But I just think you look at the last couple of games, and you can look at it both ways. Yes, they've only lost one in the last 7 since Manchester City. But you look at some of those games, Fulham in the Cup, they were laboured in that game. They were laboured last night, hammered off Arsenal, dropped 2 points at Bournemouth and Luton. Again, that run has maybe masked a bit of Newcastle's problems. And I think going forward now, playing the likes of Wolves, playing the likes of Chelsea, who are in and around them, is going to be absolutely key to, 1, how far they go this season, 2, whether Howe can maybe stave some of this pressure away. And look, it's absolutely crucial who they get in the Cup, because, as I said, that is now, for me, should be absolutely priority number 1. You've got to focus on the Cup now, because without it, and if they go out in the quarter-final, I think that pressure turns up a notch on Howe. Rightly or wrongly, for me, I still think he's the man. I think it's funny, isn't it? We always talk about that credit in the bank that he's got, but now we're starting to maybe see it's being spent a bit. How far can that credit take him? And for me, as I said, I think he's still the man. I'm nowhere near wanting a change of manager, as some people might be, but I do, understand and see that it does maybe need a change in terms of performances.
And I'm backing Eddie Howe to turn this around. I think he might need to be a bit less stubborn, though, and I think he might have to really consider some sort of system change, whether it be 3 at the back, whether it be 5, because the system at the moment isn't working. Because for it to work, you need to be clinical going forward. But Newcastle aren't doing that, and they're just so open, really lacking that kind of defensive discipline in midfield. And the pace at the back's costing Newcastle as well. There's loads of people in the comments asking a few questions, but I just want to ask you first and foremost on this point, and I've kind of alluded to already in the show, but some listening to this will be thinking, what are we doing here? Newcastle United have got through the cup.
Mm-hmm.
We should be, celebrating that. But it is a fair point to say you can celebrate the progression, but also be critical of what we saw.
Yeah, look, I mean, I do hope I'm not coming across too negative. I'm absolutely delighted that they're through the next round. But I don't think anyone will look at that performance last night and say that it was, great or good or deserving. I think ultimately, on the balance of 120 minutes, Blackburn were probably the better of the two teams. I mean, they had some fantastic chances in the first and second half. And I think Eddie Howe summed it up last night. The main feeling that I had last night was just pure relief. It wasn't, the joy of getting through. It was, they have dodged a bullet there. They've dodged a really embarrassing banana slip against an out-of-form championship team. But look, as I say, I hope I can provide some positives, and we've mentioned a few already. And one thing I will say is that, look, we've seen Eddie Howe. It's been very uncharacteristic this season that they've put together long runs without winning, or long patches where they've been really out of form. I think they just need it to start clicking, and I think once it starts clicking again, they'll be off and running. There's so much still to play for this season. Players are coming back. Last night will have done some players an absolute world of good. Probably Miggy, Martin Dúbravka, undoubtedly. But it's a big few weeks. Let's not beat around the bush.
Let's get into the comments then. John says, I was very disappointed and concerned about how much Shaw and Longstaff were, how poor they were last night. They give the ball away in silly positions, and I think they need to be taken out of the team. What do you think?
Yeah, look, Sean Longstaff last night I thought was off the pace. I didn't think he did much with the ball either. But he looks like a player who was probably played the last 15 games running without really being taken off. I thought he would probably be sacrificed last night. At some stage in the game, he wasn't. And I do agree to a similar extent to Fabian Schär and Jamal Lascelles. I thought it wasn't their best night. By the way, Sammy Smodic's up front for Blackburn. He's going to have some suitors because he was absolutely fantastic last night. Best player on the pitch for me in normal time. So, yeah, look, I think it was an off performance from a lot of them. I don't think those two can really be singled out. I thought Barnes didn't really have a good cameo when he came on. Dan Burn was a little bit off the pace. I thought there was a night where just, apart, as we've mentioned earlier, apart from Gordon and Dúbravka, there was no real standout performances over a long period of time. But just on Longstaff, I think he's been running into the ground, and I think you can tell his biggest quality last season was the energy and what he would give you off the ball. I just don't think we're seeing that at the minute.
It just looks very slow on the ball, and it doesn't look like he's got that confidence either. There was a moment, I'm not even going to try and guess at which stage of the game was, but when he's played forward, I think it was in extra time, and he's played forward, and he just needs to keep going with the ball, but he puts his foot in it and turns, and then waits for someone else to come with it. But if he goes forward, take a shot, force a foul, he doesn't look like he's got that confidence. And I'd like to see him taken out of the side. I don't think he will do. I think it'll be Miley, Willock, and Bruno on Saturday. Although, Longstaff, Bruno, and Willock on Saturday. I would play Miley, but I'm not Eddie Howe. That's why he's paid the big bucks. And yeah, Schär. I think Schär's kind of slipped back into his old ways slightly. He's been fantastic over the last 18 months or so, but he's just looking a little bit lackadaisical, I think is probably the word. But then again, like you say, he wasn't the only one. Jamal Lascelles, terrible mistake by Lascelles. But what I will say, they have to make mistakes all the time. I mean, Schär has one in his game every week, and we don't see the comeback on him all that often. And I'm all for that. We shouldn't be jumping on the back of players. But Lascelles misjudged it. But hey, look, yeah, I'm not going to hang him out to dry. But yeah, it's. I really wish we were sitting here talking about being happy and positive, but it is difficult. I think we need a good performance alongside a win for everybody's sake on Saturday, don't we?
And look, that could quite easily happen. I think Newcastle United at St James's Park, yes, they haven't been showing their best selves lately, but you've got to be confident that they've got to be better than Luton and Bournemouth. As long as, such a grueling match last night hasn't taken too much out of them. And look, there's plenty of reasons to be positive. They are in the next round of the FA Cup. That is the main thing. That is the only thing that really, really matters. Really excited for the draw tonight. Really hoping that it's who we want in. Who's in it? Who's left in it? Leicester, Coventry, is it?
I mean, Coventry, I think.
One of those
Coventry's home would do me.
Would be delightful, yeah.
Sean says, what a game. Great result. Blackburn were outstanding. Martin Dúbravka played well. Our hero, great saves. Our midfield again looked like it was struggling. Longstaff looked lost in midfield. He felt Miley and Bruno were brilliant. Still need a striker and a left back and a whole midfielder in the summer. Miggy was outstanding when he came on. Gordon again was outstanding too. Barnes a bit rusty, but that's with him being injured. I think Sean's kind of just summed it all up there, hasn't he?
He has. I think we can just all go home and log off now because that sums it up. Look, I think on Blackburn as well, they were very good, and I know we said this about Arsenal being very good and Blackburn being very good, but they give as good as they got. They defended very compactly and very well. They looked a threat going forward. I'm just going to try find a comment here from Johnny a bit earlier, because just on the flip side of that, I know I'm praising Blackburn and Arsenal, but Johnny says, it feels like we are coming up against the best version of all these teams, Blackburn, Arsenal, Bournemouth, Luton. Just wonder if we are unlucky or whether we're making these teams better. And I think that's the thing. We're Blackburn good because we allowed them to be good. We're Arsenal fantastic because we just let them be. As you say, Wolves are a very, very good team. They're in form. They're starting to pick up results. They've leapfrogged Newcastle in the league. Saturday is a game where we can't let Wolves play their game, and Newcastle really need to find that front foot football again.
We certainly do, and it's really interesting the reaction to the performance, because as you say, there are a few more people on social media, and that's not always the bar to judge how people are really feeling, but there are a few people questioning Howe's future at the club. But just looking at the comments here, watching live, and I think this is probably the majority, across the fan base. We've already said it. Eddie Howe is still the man for Newcastle United. 100%. Just needs his players back. We've got Derek saying Howe has missed key players all season. He's shown what he can do last season when we had a fit squad. Jake says as soon as the going gets tough, people want to change, give the manager a chance. And that's kind of the consensus, especially with people watching live, and the consensus of us. When he gets these players back, I'm fully expecting the performances to have an upturn, and we will start to see Newcastle United with that high press, with that energy, with that stamina. And I still think they'll finish the season strongly, and Eddie Howe will lead them into next season and still be here for many years to come.
I really hope so. I really do. And I was sort of a little bit disheartened last night at how much of the reaction I saw going the other way and saying it was time for change, because I don't think it's time for change yet. This is really the first period and coming close to 3 years where we're actually, talking about Eddie Howe being under real pressure. Do we give him that sort of leeway and say, look, he's got to have time to get it back? I think so. While they're still in the FA Cup, I certainly think so. While they're still in the hunt for European football, I still think so. But look, the next couple of weeks are going to be absolutely crucial, not just for the club, but for him as well.
Fingers crossed they can pick 3 points against Wolves on Saturday. But yes, Newcastle United into the quarterfinal of the FA Cup. Let's celebrate that. Let's be joyful and happy. And then they get Coventry at home, hopefully in the next round. And then they get through to the semi-finals and a trip down to Wembley on the cards. And it does, as I mentioned on Monday, feel a little bit like that kind of Ruud Gullit, Kenny Dalglish kind of season when, things weren't going well in the league. But they got to Wembley, and hopefully they can get to Wembley this time and go one better. But fingers crossed the league form can pick up as well. And as we said, when they get the players back, that's what I'm keeping my fingers crossed for. When they get match fit, get a bit sharper, Newcastle United can find their league form, and who knows, can qualify for you without the need to lift the FA Cup. But Aaron, thank you for popping on to the podcast on your day off. Go and enjoy yourself. Go and watch Homes Under the Hammer, or whatever you were about to do on your spare time. To you guys watching this, and thank you as always. Hit subscribe, hit follow, leave us a rating review wherever you're watching us or join us, listening to us from, and head over to chroniclelive.co.uk for all the latest Newcastle United news. And we'll see you guys very soon.